Hey, Prof G here, and in this video I'm going to be showing you BUTCH VIG Drums. Just came out today, and I have been a huge fan of BUTCH VIG, and so what I've done here is I decided to maybe dust off my guitar and my bass and come up with something that I could put to some of these drums. So this is going to be a departure for me from my usual style of music, but don't worry, I'm not switching to full rock anytime soon. So I'll show you this little idea that I've got here, and then I'm going to show you what this software is all about, because it's a play series instrument, but it's drums. So let's look at the song. Are you ready for this? Okay, so for starters, I'm going to load up a blank one so we can start this from scratch, and I'll just go over the interface. So if I click on BUTCH VIG Drums over here in the left-hand side, we can see the different kits. So there's a total of 22 different drum kits to choose from with a whole bunch of different drum sounds, and all we got to do is click on them to hear them. So I'm going to go through these. So some really cool drum kits in here for sure. These were all processed by BUTCH VIG, made in his studio. I love the sound of them. I don't think you have to do just rock with this drum library, that's for sure. So here is BUTCH VIG Drums. This is just great art. I love it. There's Butch right there. So BUTCH VIG Drums runs inside Kontakt, and you have to have the latest version that came out yesterday. So make sure you upgrade to the latest version of Kontakt if you want to use this. Right on the main page here, we can see a couple of controls up at the top. We see some macros at the bottom, and then we see the different pads right here. So if I click on them, we get the different drum hits, and I like these big letters that they've got right here. Everything is very consistent and lines up nicely with machine as well. And then over on this upper part of the keyboard, we've got a whole bunch of loops. So just hold it down. And what I'm playing right now is different patterns. So maybe I'll jump over to the patterns for a second and we can see what those are all about. So we've got intro, intro 2, intro 3, verse, and a fill. So what you can do, and how I laid out the drums in the other song, was I just took a verse, dragged it into machine. You could drag this with this little control right here. You can drag it onto any MIDI track in other DAWs as well. So now if I press play, and now I can go through and I can edit this. I can change things up a little bit. So we've got a crash right there. Let's say I want that crash. Obviously, all I'd have to do is draw it in right there. And then you could go through and make all sorts of changes to the drum loop. And of course, these will work at any BPM. This one was originally at 87. And that actually sounds way better, so maybe we'll leave it at 87 for now. And then over on the left-hand side, we can see things like speed, so we can get these loops to play at half speed or double speed. So for the other song, I'd drag in a pattern. I'd have that one going for, say, a certain amount of bars. And then what I would do is I would take this, maybe Command C and Command V, drop that in. But let's say I wanted a fill to happen on this bar. Then what I would do in Machine anyways, is I would drag this verse fill onto a new pattern. Because I was noticing that if you drag and drop it in Machine, it just replaces the one that you've already got there. So I don't want to do that. So I make a fresh pattern underneath, drag the fill in, listen to that. So maybe I just want this last half of the bar, so I copy that, Command C, go over to my first pattern and drop that in right at the halfway point of bar 4. So I'm going to Command V, and then I'll get the first half of this bar from right here and paste that in. So probably don't need that extra crash right there. There we go. So now I've got this nice beat with a fill at the end just the way I want it, and then I can just go up here and delete this pattern. So that was how I arranged the drums in the other song. There's a few things here in this pattern menu that we should talk about. There's this latch control right here. If you press a key, it'll just play without being held down, and then stops when you press the key again. And by the way, you don't have to drag and drop these beats in. You can just record an F for a whole section, and that's it. You don't need to actually drop the MIDI in if you don't want to. We've got Retrigger as well. It's kind of neat. If I hold down a note, F sharp, and then I'm going to go over to the G halfway through this loop, and you'll see it switch over to the fill. So it actually jumps in time to that spot over in the verse fill. But if I go Retrigger, every time I play a note, it's going to start from scratch. So if I press F sharp, you see that that loop now starts over at the very beginning. So you probably don't want that. The next thing is just this Quantize, and that just controls how quickly is it going to switch over to the new pattern when you switch the keys. So set it to something like an 8th note, and then just make sure you hit the note within an 8th note of when you want the next pattern to start. Back to the main page here, we've got a browser up top, so that's where you can load the different kits. And if we click the next menu item, we've got Kit, and here we can see the different samples that are being used. Over here we've got the sample that we're actually using, and if I click right there, we get a browser, and then we can go through and find the different sounds that are in this library in particular. So that's where the browser is for individual samples. And then you can also do something here with this choke group, and that's just like in Machine. If you have it set to a choke group, it's going to stop the other sound from continuing as soon as another sample is hit. So open hi-hat on choke group A cuts off the open hi-hat, which of course you'd want to imitate the sound of a real hi-hat. If I put this to, say, group B, now we can hear the hi-hat just rings, and the closed hi-hat isn't cutting it off. So I'll put that to group A. And then there's also an output, so you could process your drums differently if you wanted to. You could have the kicks going out of one channel, the snares going out of another, so you could do some external processing of your own out of the one kit. We've got some other controls like pitch and volume and pan of each individual sound. So you can get in there and get specific with each individual sound. Now my kick's coming out of the left side, right? We got a filter on the right-hand side, low pass filter, high pass filter, and then we've got velocity curve, so how hard you hit the notes, and then attack and decay envelope stuff right there. The next thing we've got is the insert effects, so we can drop in all sorts of insert effects on individual sounds right there. Send effects for each individual sound, which I really love, because sometimes you just want a huge reverb on a snare, but not on, say, the kick. So let's turn up the reverb overall down here. And then I'm going to go to the kick, turn it off. Really nice to be able to have quick controls over these send effects. We've got 2 send effects, and if we click on the effects tab, then we can see which send effects we've got hooked up. We've got reverb and delay, which are going to be the most common things to be used as send effects. If we now go look at the effects, global effect, they've got some tape saturation on the entire thing. We can turn that on and off right there. And I click this little button right here, and that gives me the detailed controls for each of these effects that are going to be on the entire kit. You can also change the effect right here with the little drop-down menu, and you can turn things on and off right there with that little power button. And then the last menu is the macros. And this one looks a little more intimidating than it is. It's got some envelopes that you can have on these macros. So if I click on this reverb right here, we can see that SFX1 reverb return level is assigned to this reverb macro right here. I drag this up and down and I can see that something is happening. And if I want to find out exactly what's going on, I can click this little button right here and it'll take me to whatever is happening with that control. So if I move this up and down, we can see that it's the reverb return, and it's even got this little dot right here that shows you that something is connected. In order to add other things to a macro, we could go and make the delay time get bigger as this one macro is being turned. So all I have to do is click on that one right there and then start moving this knob right here, wherever it's at. So I'm gonna leave it, say, right there. And now watch what happens as I turn this reverb knob. You see that my two controls are moving in sync with each other. Very easy to go in, add other things to macros. I can go back to my macro menu here. I can see that reverb time has been added to this one control. And if I decide I don't want that anymore, I can just remove it right there. You can even go and change the name down here at the bottom if you want. So that is the basics of the macros. And then the last things to look at, of course, is the tuning. So that's tuning of the entire kit, and then we've got a volume control right here. I'm not getting paid to make this video, by the way, but they did send me the software, and I do have an affiliate link in the description. So if you want to help me out, just click on that link if you're going to buy the software. So the coolest part about these libraries that are coming out is the fact that you're getting connected to these famous artists. 10, 15 years ago, everybody kept everything to themselves. And nowadays, the information is just out there. And it's really exciting. It's a really great time to be making music. Make sure you scroll back and check out some of my older videos, hit the subscribe button and the bell, and I'll see you in the next video.